Welcome to the Ascension Stargate podcast series, where we discuss the aspects of human consciousness, spirituality, metaphysics and philosophy, energy, extraterrestrial life, science, biology, and the alchemy of higher states of beingness, all from a heart-centered perspective. I am your host and guide, Glenn Mate, and let's begin our journey.
Thank you for joining us on another amazing journey here on the Ascension Stargate podcast series. Today we are doubling down with two amazing human beings that have been spending their life helping us evolve as human beings, spiritually, metaphysically, and psychically. I'd like to give a warm and loving welcome to Lyssa Royal Holt and Ronald Holt. Lyssa Royal Holt is a world-renowned trance channeler, author, seminar leader who began channeling in 1985. She is most known for her classic books such as The Prism of Lyra, Preparing for Contact, The Golden Lake, and her in-depth channeling training courses. While much of her work explores the subject matter of extraterrestrials, the practical grounding application of her material is her utmost priority. Ronald Holt. At the age of 3 years old, Ronald began having what he calls cosmic repeating dreams and otherworldly actual physical visitations, each leaving their own unique influence, as well as Ron's deep impressions upon himself, leading him towards a lifelong passion to question reality's foundation. For him, in order to unveil the reasons for such reality-shattering experiences, that drive and passion led Ron into many explorations with the nature of self and consciousness and began answering the passionate drive for understanding and self-realization as he came across and continues practicing quantum navigation. Lyssa and Ron, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It's such a pleasure to have you. I want to jump right in as we normally do here on this podcast. Let's break into this extraordinary story of how you two met. You want to expound on that, please?
I'll let her take the lead on this.
Well, yes, it is quite a story, and I'm going to take out all the little details that are not necessary and just kind of give you an overview. But if we go back now to like 1993, 1994 area, I remember at one point I was doing some kind of work with one of the beings that I channel called Germain. It's a group consciousness. And Germain had given me an exercise that had to do with meeting my counterpart, or more, actually, I should be more specific, meeting my inner male energy. That's how he wrapped this exercise in. So I was like, okay, I can do with that. So I followed his instructions. And one of the things I had in the instructions was write down everything you want in this counterpart. I think everybody has done exercises similar to this. So I wrote down, some of the more superficial things, like physical characteristics, emotional characteristics. But I also wrote down some things that were highly unlikely that it would be all in one person. Like I do a lot of work in Japan, so I wanted somebody that would be connected to Japan in some way, who could recognize my connection and maybe had a connection of their own so we could share it. So I put all that in the notebook. I closed the notebook, put it aside, totally forgot about it. So in the second half of 1994, I was scheduled to lead a not a workshop, but like a sacred site journey with the Mayan shaman Hunbat's men and a Japanese group. So before we were leaving, maybe a couple weeks before it was time to leave, I get this fax. This was, I think, before email. Actually, I'm dating myself. I got a fax from Japan with all the list of names that are going to be on this trip, and it's all Japanese names. And at the very bottom is the name Ronald Holt. I kid you not, my higher self or whomever, the universe, loudly said to me, again, not a voice, but more like a download, "This is your partner." And I was like, what? I don't usually get messages like that, especially so personal, having to do with my personal life. So I kind of pushed it away because, my superficial brain is thinking, what if he's like 80 years old and, very unfit and with a bad personality. So I kind of put that away because what do you do with that, right? Okay, so the weeks go by and now I'm landing in Cancun to meet the Japanese group. So I remember standing in the hotel of the Japanese group where we were all staying, and they were arriving on a bus. So I was already there. So I'm waiting and waiting, waiting. Japanese group comes. I see them come in, and I see the one Western guy there. And I look at him and immediately knew he was the one on the list. Now, my dear Ron back then was, he had long hair down his back, and he has the most beautiful hair that, a woman would die for. So his hair was so gorgeous, and he was physically everything I had written on that list. And he's coming with a Japanese group, which is phenomenal because there's that, that other check mark that I thought I'd never get. So as the time went on in the tour, we had very long days where the shaman, Hunmatsman, would take us to the different sites. He'd give us lectures, and then I would do channelings there. And so, like, we only had free time between like midnight and 6 a.m. probably. But somehow Ron and I kept being drawn to each other and having these conversations and just really connecting on a deep level. And it was usually like between midnight and 3 a.m. that we would. So I didn't get much sleep on that trip, and I had to I had to work. So as the time went on, there was this stronger and stronger voice of my higher self or the universe telling me, you have to pursue him because he's too shy to pursue you. And my mind is saying, wait a minute, I'm one of the leaders of this tour. It's not really cool for me to pursue somebody who's on the tour. That's like, in terms of my ethics, that's a big no. But the universe is like, don't worry about it. It's okay. Just be cool. Just do it with integrity and, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, I'm very shy too. So for the universe to push me was a big deal for me because I don't usually do that. But synchronicity would have it. We would be on the long bus rides and we'd sit together and you could feel that energy going on. And there was just a connection, and the higher self just kept telling me over and over and over what to do step by step. Kind of freaked me out. So by the end of that trip, it was like 2 weeks later. I'm leaving out a lot. Actually, it's like 30 something years ago. So the details are fading a little bit, but, or maybe that's just my brain. Ron. But by the end of the 2 weeks, that was it. We had connected. It was very clear we were going to continue after, though I lived in Phoenix, he lived in Hawaii. So that's like, how do we make that happen, right? So after that trip was over, I know we sound like these globetrotters. It was just a very busy work time at that time. Ron went off to Egypt, And I went off to South America. So I was going to Lake Titicaca, Easter Island, Chile, Bolivia, and I was pretty much cut off from everything. I mean, again, back then, just faxes or phones. So we decided, okay, we'll connect again and we'll figure it out after the trip. Both of our trips are over. But during my end of the trip, I had long, bumpy bus rides and broken down school buses around Lake Titicaca. Yep. And higher self just kept flooding me with, I can't even describe what it was. It was like processing unhealed stuff within myself that would stop me from pursuing a relationship, processing belief systems, all that kind of stuff, pointing in the direction to, look, this is the person you have to connect to. So you better get your stuff together because it's going to happen. And so when it was over, I was quite certain about it. And we connected by phone when we both got back from our trips. And that's when he invited me to come to Hawaii, basically to kind of see, is this going to work? So long story short, a year later, I was leading a tour group in Peru, and we were at Machu Picchu. And one day we woke up. I still remember this day. Ron opened the curtains and we have this view of Machu Picchu. I don't even know if you can stay up there anymore. And he said, what a beautiful day. It's a perfect day to get married. That was my proposal, right? And I was also doing this tour with a Peruvian shaman. So Ron said, I'm going to ask him. His name was Quichi. Maybe some people listening to this know him. He's been doing this work for a long time. And he said, I'm going to ask him to marry us. So Ron went off to find the shaman, and shamans, they gotta kind of put you through a lot of tests and a lot of hoops you have to jump through. So I think he'll tell you this part, but I think like he asked a couple of times and he was ignoring him or, not answering him. And at the third time Ron asked, he said, I will consult the coca leaves and let you know. And he came back with an answer. The coca leaves said yes and gave him a time, a place, and a day. So it was December 11th, 1995. That was when we were married by the shaman at Machu Picchu.
Wow.
As the years went by, we didn't know why, but there was a period of time where we ended up working together. That was really, really transformational, I think, for both of us and also for the students. And that was probably one of the reasons why. But, the universe has its plan. So that's my short version of our meeting. So Ron, you're going to take it away.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'm sure I left something out.
A lot. So there's a lot of moving parts to this as I share my story. But you'll see those moving parts gel back together. So it seems like I'm going off on all these different tangents, but boom, it collides back together. And so anyway, at that time, well, I guess she's making that list, unbeknownst to me.
She didn't exist until I made that list.
Right.
Exactly.
The dough wasn't ready yet.
Right.
It was still in the
power
oven.
of intention.
So I was
thought.
What's that?
There's serious thought in that.
So at that time, I was working as an archaeologist in Hawaii for Bishop Museum and a couple other places. And also at the same time, I was well involved with my spiritual process. And so I was working at Down to Earth, the health food store in Honolulu. And on one day, I was walking away from Down to Earth on the sidewalk, and I run across these four Japanese individuals. They're elders, right? So they were asking for directions to Sirius Bookstore, which I happen to know exactly where it was at. So, we greeted each other, said hello and all this. And then, I pointed the way to where the bookstore was. Well, later on in the day, I'm all the way across town, and who do I run into but those same Japanese folks? So we laughed and joked around, and we must be, on some kind of serendipitous path, the crossing that's supposed to be important, so we just kind of laughed about it and let it go. Well, later on in the afternoon, I get a phone call from a friend of mine, and she tells me or asks me, hey, there's this coronation to take place for the high priest of the kahunas of the entire Pacific. We need an extra observer. Will you be a witness? I said, yeah, just tell me where to go. And she said, go up Tantalus Mountain. There's a road that goes up to the top, and there's houses up there. She told me which house to go to. So I go, and she said, be there by 8 o'clock. So I get up there, 8 o'clock, knock on the door. I'm greeted. There's a whole bunch of people in there. And who's in there? But those four Japanese people. So we're like, what? Now, it's going to make sense in just a moment here. So we went through the coronation, and there was kahunas from all over the South Pacific up there to witness the high coronation that was taking place. Anyway, now let's just fast forward from that meeting about 5 or 6 months. And at that time, I have to go to Japan to put on the 6-day Flower of Life Sacred Geometry workshop. So I'm in Japan, and on one of the days, one of the evenings, one of the guys there said to me, he stayed after we were done for the day, and he said, hey, do you know Lyssa Royal? And I go, yeah, I've seen her books, but funny thing is I go into bookstores and my guidance will have me pull one of her books, and then they'll say not yet and have me push it back, and I go, what? Okay. So I put it back. So I said, yeah, I've heard of her, but right now I'm not supposed to go into her material. And he said, well, I have a video from her because she was just here and she was channeling a dolphin and a whale, and I want to get your opinion on how well she does in channeling. So I said, okay, I'll watch it tonight. I'll give you a report in the morning. So I watched it that night. I came back and I go, wow, she's really good. I really enjoyed her channeling session with both the whale and the dolphin. Okay.
Oh, thank you very much.
Wow, she waited this long to get that validation.
I know.
Ron.
Like I never told her. How we keep secrets. So he says to me, there's this Mayan shaman. It's his 52nd birthday. And it's an important, for the Mayans, that's a very auspicious year. He's going to be doing a tour in the Yucatan. You should consider going. And I said, yeah, okay, thanks for the invite. And in my mind, I'm going, well, I need to have the finances all fall into place. So if everything falls into place, then yeah, I'd be open to doing it. So, but at that time, no. So I had to go to Hong Kong. And when I went to Hong Kong, I was putting on the Flower of Life workshop again, 6 days long. And about 3 days into it, one of the participants, who wasn't a participant at that time, was banging on the door. So I stopped the presentation, and I opened up the door, and she goes, "Hi, my guidance told me that I need to be here." So I need to be here. And I go, we're in the middle of the class. You missed 3 days already. And she goes, "I don't care. My guidance told me to be here, so I got to be here." And I go, "Well, okay, by all means, come on in." And so I invited her in. Anyway, at the end of the day, that day, I see she's still around as everybody filtered out. And she goes, "I need to talk to you. My guidance told me to tell you something." And she said, my guides told me you have this guide, this guide, this guide, and this guide. And I went, "Okay, you have my attention. What?" And she goes, "You need to go to the Yucatan. There's two people." There's two people. I guess I'm still getting the okay on that. There's two people that are very important for you to meet for your future. So you need to go. And again, I'm rifling through my mind. Well, all the money's got to line up and So anyway, after that workshop, I was due to go back to Japan. And that individual gave me the information, the contact number for the person that was putting on that tour for the Mayan shaman. So, I called the number, and this lady answers the phone in Japanese. I recognize her voice, and I go, "English, please." And then she starts talking English, and I go, "Kazumi?" And she goes, "Ron." It was the lady, one of the ladies of those 3 Japanese that I ran into 3 times on the island on that one day, who turned out also to be Lyssa's translator.
Oh my.
So she tells me, I tell her, I hear you're coordinating for the Mayan shaman tour. She goes, "Yes." And I go, "Okay, well, I need to be on that tour." Because everything fell into alignment, right?
Because I need to meet my wife.
Well, I didn't even know it was her tour. I just knew it was the Mayan shaman at that time. She didn't even say. Kazumi never told me Lyssa was leading it. It was just, I'm supposed to go meet that. So anyway, I fly down there to Yucatan. And before the bus comes in, I knew the time that the bus would come in. So I was waiting in the lobby for the Japanese. And as I saw them come in, out of the corner of my eye, I see this one white girl. And she's in gray sweatpants and sweat top, and I'm like,
it was purple, but okay.
Okay, it was sweatpants. I got that right.
Yeah, sweatpants is right. Yeah.
I'm getting gray. Anyway, I looked at her and I went, "Ooh," and I just had this feeling, step back. And my higher self says to me, and this I will never forget, my higher self says, "Behave yourself." Which made me even more scared. So anyway, on the bus trips and all the times that we were talking before any type of intimacy started happening, I was very afraid of, because I could feel there was something there, and I was like, not so sure this should happen or not, because I'd been through a number of relationships, and I could feel the, in the emotional environment, you can feel the hooks. I'll operate this way, camouflaging my true intent to make you. So I was well aware of feeling all of those things. So I was like, if that's going to happen, I've got to test this out first. So anyway, as we were going along, I couldn't feel any of those hooks. So I was like, okay, well, let's, she invited me to her room platonically.
Thank
So
you.
on this occasion, I thought, well, let's see what she does with golden light. So, I wanted to sit and meditate and bring in the golden light with her. And so as I held the golden light, she was feeling it, and she did really good with it. So I was like, okay, I gotta go. So I left the room, went to my room. And so anyway, later on the 8-hour long bus trip, that's when we sat together and we really started talking, and I was opening up, she was opening up. So we felt the emotional intimacy and the intellectual intimacy, without having to proceed on any physical intimacy. So that had to be there first. That was really important. Now that I see, it was very important for both of us. It was absolutely essential that was there first. We had enough relationships based on the physical only, or the emotional and physical. But this time I was like, okay, let's do it really right. So anyway,
what an amazing story that is. There's so much knowledge in that. It's about the power of manifestation and our intentions, right? And going from that thought to action. So physically writing something out and then saying, I'm putting this out here to the universe. You take care of this now. So, that's also about trusting, right? Which we don't do. We're like, maybe. And, we forget about it instead of like, okay, this is it. This is what I want. This is my desire. And then how the universe conspires in this web that is so detailed. There's no making this up. This is movie magic stuff, right?
Right.
And it just comes together so harmonically.
Yes. Yeah.
I have never in my life to this day received such detailed step-by-step guidance telling me how to navigate this crazy, scary place that I was at. And I followed every step of guidance and it worked, I guess.
Right. And facing the fear that we have, because intimacy can be such a scary thing, right? How do we, have a relationship that develops from this pure seed of joy? And how does that, there's a lot of scary stuff that we, have to manage and wade through and figure out. And yet, you did that both without, that fear, that trust in the universe. Universe has got my back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that universe has got my back. I was working for Honeywell, and in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Well before this, he's talking about.
Well, yeah, before I moved to Hawaii, just before I moved to Hawaii, I had worked there for 5 years, and I was getting, deeper into my spiritual work. And then one day, the guides came to me and they said, okay, it's time for you to leave here. And I go, what do you mean leave here? I'm vested for retirement. I've got a child. I've got a wife at that time. Before Lyssa, I had a wife. And so, I can't just up and leave. And they said, get up and leave. And so I said, okay, I believe in following spirit, but I need 3 absolutely convincing signs from you before I take that leap. And I thought, okay, now I've got about a year. By the next day, I had my 3 concrete signs. I was like, oh God, I took myself to personnel and I put in my 2 weeks notice. They asked me what I was going to do. I go, I don't know. And I didn't at that time. And then, during when I completed that commitment, then Spirit came in and said, okay, go to Hawaii. And I go, okay, I don't need no convincing for that. But I had to sell everything I owned, which wasn't much, and just put a backpack and a 10-speed, got on the plane, went to Honolulu, got off the plane, got my 10-speed and went to the beach, and then went, okay, what do I do next? And just followed Spirit from there. And the reason why I'm bringing up this story is because before I started on the journey to finally meeting her, I was working with Flower of Life, putting on the 6-day workshops. And I had to do one in Hong Kong. So I had 13 people and I go, okay, that's enough to pay for the ticket. Okay, we're going. So I landed and my facilitator there goes, oh, you know what? Everybody quit. What do we do? And I went, okay, well, let's proceed as if we're going to, checked in, and it's like, no, everything will be fine. We're just testing you, kind of a thing. I didn't know that at the time, but and so we had 3 days, and by that third day, we had a replacement of all those participants, and I'm like, that's a real. So I'm bringing that up because I was at that time learning to trust fully and walk the rainbow, and the rainbow provided the bridge. Now, later on in life, it's not really appropriate to walk your entire life in the rainbow. You have to ground. And put all those things together. So anyway, I wanted to share that part because that's also a part of the development, trusting in Spirit, when you absolutely feel that it's a strong enough rainbow to carry you to your destination with an open heart and open mind.
That story just completely resonates. So I understand how that is, where we have to make a decision to trust, right? And say, I'm going to leave something behind. And sometimes that's our ego, sometimes that's our finances, sometimes that it's the projection of the life that we think we should be living.
And your security.
and your security. And say, okay, it's out the window. Here I go. Guide me.
Mm-hmm. So when we were getting back to the story, when we decided to meet together and have her come to Hawaii, I thought, okay, this is the final check for all the hooks. So I'm going to put her through a few more hoops and jumps. So we went to the Big Island. And on the Big Island at that time, you could walk right up to the lava flows at night. Oh. And you can put sticks in the lava flow, and she was so keen for all of that. Her spirit of adventure, her trust and her guidance, all that was like right there. And so
you didn't tell me I could have died.
Right. Toxic fumes.
My hiking boots melted, but
So anyway, I put her through a number of hoops and jumps, and then when we went on the journey down to Peru, no, it wasn't Peru. Well, yeah, at Peru, when we were at Machu Picchu, and I opened up the curtains, and she said, "Yeah, let's get married here." And I go, "Okay, I'll ask Koichi." So. Like she said, the first time I asked Koichi, I was sitting alone with him at breakfast, and he looked right through me, and my question, I watched it just dissipate into the nothingness, as it went past him, as if, he didn't even see or hear it or care about it. So I was like, okay, that was weird. And then at lunchtime, I thought, okay, I'll try it again. This time around, friends, so all of us were sitting together in there, and I go, hey, Koichi, would you marry Lyssa and I? And same thing.
Mm.
And then so at dinner, I go, okay, let's try it again. I'll bring it up. So I bring it up, and he goes, now you've asked me 3 times. Now I know you're really serious.
Mm.
So he said, in the morning, meet, by Pachamama, and in Machu Picchu, the big rock. And there he did the ceremony, and yeah, it was phenomenal.
Magical.
Yeah.
Magical. The place, the setting, the people. What a great story. I feel so honored that you shared that today with me. And of course, that now we're going to share that story with, the universe and any inhabitant, human being or being that will view this podcast, because it's a great story. And I feel honored that you shared that with me. So thank you so
And you're the
much.
first one. I don't think we've ever even recorded this story.
Never,
So
never.
So again, I'm super, super honored for you sharing this sacred story, because there is so much learning within that. And I think that it will resonate with many people, especially since the time that we're in this moment of now,
Mm.
right? There's so much changing. We're losing our old thoughts, our old paradigms, our old cultural norms and beliefs, and we're starving for something new. And that starving is finding the authenticity of who we really are, right? And there's so many ways for this information to come into our awareness today. And I would love to start off with you, Lyssa, and start to talk about, all of these great things that are coming not only through you, but these things that you've been developing with other beings to create more harmony, more information, more intelligence, and more harmonics throughout our lives. So if you would share, I would love.
where do we start?
Well, we
Um,
could always start with ETs, because, you and I both have this Palladian connection. So let's start with some of our favorite Palladian.
okay. Well, then I'm going to go all the way back to the 80s because that's when maybe it's my generation but that's the magical decade for me. That's when I was introduced to channeling. That's when channeling happened to me. And one of the primary beings I channel, Sasha, came in 1988.
Mm,
So that's when I started to channel her, although I had been channeling since 85. And this was such a natural progression for me because even as a child, I grew up in New Hampshire, so there's a lot of lore about UFOs in New Hampshire, a lot of very famous cases. So I was aware of those, strangely enough, I don't know how, but I was aware of them pre-internet days. And in 79, I had a UFO sighting
mm,
with my family in New Hampshire that I see was the turning point
mm,
because it was one of those experiences where it's not conventional. It was impossible to be conventional. It was, a bright light like a sun in the middle of a forest. Nothing conventional can fly through trees like that. I won't give you the details of it, but whatever happened, it was very, very clear. The sounds, what the lights did, and that set me on the path. So 79, I was in college and I was studying psychology. So one of my uh, lessons was in self-hypnosis. So we had to kind of experiment with self-hypnosis. It's like the universe, like I'm the last one in on the joke. The universe is like setting me up exactly for what I need to do in this life, unbeknownst to me. So as I'm starting to go into self-hypnosis and experiment with it, I'm starting to notice I'm receiving things.
mm,
And the first thing was what I see now, or what I thought then was a poem, but it was about spirit and the infinite nature of the universe. They were giving it to me even then. Fast forward, after graduation, I moved to Los Angeles. And when I moved to Los Angeles, that was the time of the height of the New Age stuff. So I think I moved there like in 83, I think it was. And Shirley MacLaine's book, Out on a Limb, had just come out, and she had introduced channeling. I was having more UFO sightings in Los Angeles. And then the universe brought me to, unbeknownst to me again, because I thought I was going someplace else, to Darryl Anka's channeling. Channeling Bashar. And this was back when he was channeling in the living room of someone's house, and there were like 10 of us. So I would go to see Darryl channel like 2 or 3 times a week. And you can imagine it was life-changing. I got connected. The channeling started to happen to me then in a way I could more identify, rather than like getting a poem, in self-hypnosis when I was younger. And I was connected with a teacher. We had a year-long class of intense channel training. The channeling teacher was working with professors at UCLA. And because I had a degree in psychology, then I saw it as being, valid, because I'm kind of a left brain person. So I just followed that path where it led. But the one thread throughout all of this, the one question I wanted answered was, what is the connection between humans and the universe? What is the connection between us and ETs? Because I already was past the question of, do they exist? It was so obvious that they do. And I remember I would go into the Bodhi Tree bookstore in Los Angeles. Some of you or viewers will remember this place. And the channeling section was like this big. There were only a few books, and especially the channeling ET section was like this, maybe this many books. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to access this information myself. So once I became stable as a channel, I think when I had enough years under my belt of channeling, that the information started to come. So that became the first book, Prism of Lyra, that so many people know about. Strange, it's still the best selling of all of my books, and it's like 36 years old now.
Right.
It's phenomenal to me. But that led me on the path. So I'm really kind of giving you like a short version here. From there, again, focusing on the ETs, I started to receive, I'm going to skip one book and I'm going to go to another book, the Preparing for Contact book, because that is really kind of the foundation of so much of the work that I do. I started to receive information about basically contact programs, how to prepare for contact programs. Now, at this point, I had moved from Los Angeles to Sedona, Arizona. So the environment was different, experiences were different. And the books very quickly started to channel through me. And there were lots of steps and ideas that were new, really new to me, that were so very exciting about how we can actually go out into the field and engage this phenomena ourselves and build the bridge between humans and our extraterrestrial family. So the book was finished, it went to the printers. Now we're in 93, and I went to the UFO Congress in Laughlin. It was in Laughlin at that time. And I met a guy there who was not very well known at the time, named Dr. Stephen Greer. Now, of course, he's big deal. And his lecture was exactly what I had just put in the book that was coming out in a matter of weeks. So again, this is what I mean by the universe just constantly putting me on the path I need to walk on with this. Okay, so to speed up the whole thing, since 93, since that book came out, the best, the most joyful, exciting thing for me in my work is the contact work. So I've seen the evolution now in over 30 years of the human relationship to contact, how we've grown and how they are interacting with us in different ways. And you can really see the shift by the decade. It's quite extraordinary. Now, if you want to ask about that, I can, but it gets into the nerdy weeds a little bit. But here we are now in 2026. What year is this? And I'm seeing the fruits of all the seeds that have been planted in these contact preparation programs that Sasha has been working on now for over 30 years. Daryl and Bashar have been working with, Stephen Greer, other groups have been working at them all at different angles, so that we're kind of building this field, this resonance field of contact that I feel is really affecting our world in a positive way and will be instrumental for when open contact finally occurs. So I'm going to take a breath there because that's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, so completely, we are, well, through the beginning of your work, right, through all of that collective consciousness, I'd like to say that we started to grow, right, in the early 90s, late 80s. It was a thing, but it was so taboo, right? It was like, oh, we don't want to touch with that because we don't know the energies that we're messing with. And it wasn't really well understood.
Yes.
But over this past decade, it's grown, and the body of work is now more encompassing as we understand that there's something else out there and that it has a benevolent energy to it. And that when we come into this beautiful, coherent field with the invitation of our own coherence, we now have the opportunity to some way create this unique communication, this unique dance between the two of us, where we're starting to understand that, well, we're certainly not alone. We do have, with our coherent thoughts and our intentions that are pure, we see reactions come back, and they're physical. We either have something by sight, something by feel, something by cognition, and it's growing and it's growing. And we're on the precipice now of something grand that is about to occur as we now push the rock over the top of the hill, so to speak, and see how far it's going to go. It's like we take the ball and finally say, okay, here's the Hail Mary pass. It's coming. Where's it going to end? And
Yeah.
I think there's something so beautiful that we're just waiting to happen.
Yeah. Something you said triggered an important point about all of this. Um, like in the 90s, for example, the way we were interacting with contact, or our relationship with it, was as an observer, meaning watching for what is happening out here. But as the decades have gone by, we've moved out of our heads and we've moved more, well, a lot of us have, let's say, some are still there, but we've moved into an experiential field. And I give a lot of credit to the CE5 groups around the world, whether they're run by Greer, my students, anyone, there's so many of them, because they've created an environment where we can have experience in a coherent field. And that experience of consciousness expansion is what is making it possible for us to build the necessary energetic field to invite a healthy and balanced contact. So if we were just trying to work through this with our brains, we could never get there.
Right.
We have to surrender to the experience of the quantum nature of this of contact itself. And Ron, I'm sure, is going to talk about quantum later, because that is what's going to make us have the quantum leap that's necessary for this next phase.
Right. We're in this new understanding, right? It's not just the idea of, ooh, that's something that's so unusual and it's out there. But we now realize with that quantum that it also exists in here.
Yes, and I admit I like seeing the cool stuff too. And we've had, like in the last decade, amazing cool stuff that is absolutely, positively to me, proof. But it
Right.
came when I didn't need the proof anymore, right? That's usually the way it works.
You know, and that leads us to this transcendence, right? We're transcending as human beings, not only from, recognizing that there's something outside of us, but it also exists within us. And it is an invitation for us to really find out, who are we as a human being? Who are we as the human race? And we can now move through so many of those blockages and those paradigms and those cultural norms that we held so tightly to, that just don't serve us anymore. Because now there's full proof and understanding that we can move forward, we can let go. Would you like to expand on that?
Huh. In what direction?
Well, you know, let's talk about some of the things that you're offering in the Soli School and in your personal work through your workshops, as, how to learn how to channel. There's so many things that are interwoven into those things. So if you'd love to talk about that, this would be a great.
Yeah. In the 90s, for example, I fooled myself into thinking the contact road was a separate one from all the other things that I worked with, like learning to channel or awakening workshops and things like that. But what I'm starting to see now is that they're all on the same road, and they are different expressions of the same idea. So, for example, we talked about contact, and I talked about, well, one of the things that I love the most is doing the contact work with people, whether we're out in nature or even I've been doing it online too, but helping people get into that field so they can have their own experiences, make their own connections, and grow our collective consciousness. Okay, so we have that. I've seen phenomenal results with people having awakening experiences. Then we have the channeling, the channel training. And this is something also that's really, really near and dear to my heart. Because, as I mentioned, I had the background with a teacher who was studied by psychologists at UCLA, and because of my psychological background, I'm really interested in providing a very grounded course so that the opening to channel can affect our lives as a humans, that we can use those tools to clear ourselves, to balance our egos, to integrate our inner selves. So there's a class that I give, actually, it's a bilingual class because it's so intensive. It's hard to do more than one in a year. And I do it every year with a Japanese company. And we have English speakers join as well. It's a year-long course that delves into this idea of, yes, opening to channel, but channeling is a framework through which we work in the course. But the course touches more so the healing and awakening aspects of our own consciousness. The channeling can be a byproduct of that. But what I've seen then is that a lot of the students, when they start making connections, they're making extraterrestrial connections. And sometimes these connections are other versions of themselves. I mean, ultimately, we're all individual versions of the one anyway. So when they're meeting these other selves, it's an integration process that facilitates awakening. So here you have contact, channeling process, and awakening all wrapped into one specific package. So I'm seeing now they're not separate roads. We can approach each of the subjects differently, but in general, we're walking the same road, and this is the road or a road that is necessary for the awakening of the collective consciousness of our planet. So that's a lot to kind of drop there. To answer your question, so I do that year-long course. The registration for the next year opens every November, and that's always on my website. I do there's a course I just finished actually last weekend called School of the Nine Serpents. That's a whole other story, but that's ancient awakening teachings that are adapted for modern day that come from the stars. And then, of course, here and there, different channeling workshops, contact events, etc. So it's all kind of wrapped together. There's another bundle to unpack.
It's amazing to see our human potential when we start to go down the road of opening up our abilities of psionics. And we may go down the road thinking, oh, I'm going to learn how to channel. And all of a sudden, you figure out that you can manipulate this energy in a way where you're having a physical change in the way that maybe an object or your physical healing ability. So there's so many, like you said, there's so many byproducts of this that, the more that we become conscious of what our capability is and kind of figuring out, what do I don't know that I don't know? Right?
And the byproducts that you're talking about are different for everyone.
Right.
So that's the thing. When you engage with this process, what is revealed is what you need to see for yourself. That is a road that is yours to take, can be your path of excitement and service in this life.
Absolutely. So, there's endless potentials because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
But going through the process, we'll start to vet out like, oh, that's interesting. Why do I have such an interest in this particular subject matter? Or why do I feel so drawn to contact work? And then all of a sudden something else spurs and blossoms out of that. So what I'd like to say is, can we now maybe get a little perspective of our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters on maybe what their perception is as we go through this transcendence process?
You mean a channeling, yes?
The channeling, yeah. What are the extraterrestrial beings saying as we come into this age of transcendence and we're sitting here now like, oh, what might be my possibilities, or what could my future be like in the next few years as everything is changing and rebirthing itself?
One of the foundational ideas that's a common thread through my channeling is talking about the nature of this shift that's happening on our world. Because the nature of this shift that's happening reveals exactly why all this chaos is happening on the planet right now, right? So my languaging, the languaging they gave me for this, it might be different than people have heard from other teachers. Generally, it's the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
So Sasha talks about the shift from third to fourth density. So the definition of third density is the part of our evolutionary cycle that is the most separated, where we don't remember that we are a fractal of the one. And so we live our lives then in a way utilizing a lot of solar plexus energy, which is will, which is ego, which is strength, which is projection in the outside world. We don't pay a lot of attention to what is happening internally when you're deeply in that separated cycle. So the last 13,000 years of our planet was that cycle of separation. And there's a much larger point of view, but it's a whole lesson I can't give here. So we're at the point now where the Mayans said, the end of the calendar. It's the end of that 13,000 year cycle of separation. And we're moving into what Sasha calls fourth density, which is when integration starts with all the aspects of ourselves we've kept separate, and the memories come back of ourselves as a fractal of the one. So she's been saying that there's this crossover period that we are smack in the middle of right now between third and fourth density, where we're moving from operating or navigating in that reality through the solar plexus and the will and the ego and force and conflict and all of that. And the energy is actually moving now more into heart space, which is bringing our full presence into the here and now, which also then means we have to bring our awareness of our fractality and our connection to the universe to the present time as well. So consequentially, any structures on the planet that have been built from separation, from fear, from control dynamics, it's almost like the house of cards. There's no more strength anymore for those cards to stay intact. So they're starting to fall. So you're seeing in our world all this chaos, and you're seeing even chaos agents, people who seemingly on the surface are creating this, but who are also, unbeknownst probably to their conscious minds, playing a role to help shift us into an eventually more integrated, more unified state of reality. So I think Sasha was kind of giving that lecture because
Thank you,
I'm
Sasha.
like, what am I saying? I don't even remember what the question was. It definitely felt like Sasha paying a visit.
Well,
so did that answer your question?
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense that, as you spoke about some of our political leaders, or the way that our industry is speaking, that things are starting to come to its rearing that ugly head, but it has no stability.
Right.
And yet we see some of this chaos, or we may see it as chaos, but I see it as this is the blossom pushing up on the earth that is ready to birth something brand new, a totally new energy.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful to see that we know there's going to be change, because there's no going back.
Yeah.
Right? We can't go backwards anymore. There is no backwards. There's only this way. We're only going forward.
Exactly. And, you made the comment about stability. We used to think stability was, build a strong structure. But in reality, stability comes from unification, not division. So what we're seeing is that any groups or energies that have division within them are fragmenting and fragmenting and fragmenting. And what can only be built as true stability and integration is those energies built or based on a unity field. And that's what we're seeing now, is that changeover between the two, which, it can be super scary. And who knows, Ron and I are in our 60s now. So it's like, are we going to be around long enough to see what is built? But everything's happening so fast. So let's see.
One of the unfortunate things that I like to revert back to as an example, that how out of chaos comes order and compassion, and something that is absolutely near and dear to my heart as a past career firefighter, is bringing up 9/11, a horrific event, and yet post 9/11 on 9/12, our resonance of our heart-centered resonance of the planet went up, and we became more unified as not just New York or New England or United States, but the planet. And, you know, the things that we can learn that were so important of that was that despite what we may consider as a terrible act, it was the turning point in a way that proved that we could unify with a thought, with compassion, with deep care, love, consideration, and let everything else go by the wayside. It wasn't as important as it was to be unified in the moment.
And we seem to be being given more and more tests to get to higher and higher levels of unity. Sasha has said, unfortunately, COVID was one of those experiences where we had an opportunity to be very unified and awaken at that time, and we chose division instead. So, you know, there's a little bit more things coming down the pike for us to give us an opportunity to transcend to that more unified level.
Absolutely. Do you think, or are you getting the sense at all that Sasha would like to share something with our viewers today? Or do you feel that maybe she wants to give us some information?
I know she already did.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think, let's see what, sometimes she'll tell me. She said she's feeling if you have a specific question that you want to give to her, she's willing to share, but she's saying she gave the main message she wanted to give today already.
Got it. Okay. So as a channel myself, I understand that. That means that that message is complete for this moment in time for right now. So let's go to some navigation and let's talk about some quantum navigation with Ron, because I think that dovetails in perfectly as we spoke about our transcendence and, you know, things that are coming up that are going to continually not necessarily be tests, but see if we're ready to receive that new energy. And quantum navigation has everything to do with that. Ron?
Take it away.
Well said. Well said. So you've already spoken about what happened at 9/11, and you're noticing that for individuals that were ready, there was a quantum shift. The door was open, and the heart presence, the beingness, we will say, started activating amongst, let's say, the foundation of individuals. Yet at the same time, you had the opposite taking place. And that's always going to be the case. This planet is filled with the duality and the dynamics of a constant changing series of utopic and dystopic. And that's what part of the earth is designed to do, is to go through those. So moving ahead to COVID, as Lyssa was saying, there was an opportunity then to be more present by going in. Of course, we were kind of shut down and had to stay indoors, and a lot of our freedoms were minimized. And that was a perfect opportunity then to begin drawing the focus inward. So as Lyssa already pointed out, the Earth in the galactic, I'm using this halfway frame, this means the disk of the galaxy. Okay, this is the median disk. So the
I know what you mean.
And she pointed out that we were cycling through those. We have 13,000 years above that median disk and 13,000 years below. We've been in the below. In the below, that's where separation consciousness magnifies and multiplies, and then it on its way up, even time, you notice time starts speeding up. It was going really, really slow, but boy, as we got closer and closer to 2020, oh my God, it's like a salad spinner. You're like in a centrifuge where it's roiling up all kinds of issues we've held on to and trying to navigate in a circumstance where everything's spinning around you. You have to find a new navigational eye of the hurricane, so to speak, a place where there's peace, centeredness, stability, and you'll notice in that door, there's access to the quantum presence of your being. So as Lyssa was saying that at the COVID, we started moving into being more present with ourselves. So for myself, now I work with preparing individuals to understand their quantum sense of self, because we have been in a state of separation, identification, and in that separation identification, we're filled with a lot of dramas and traumas that contract us into the most smallest configuration or feeling of our how helpless, nothing, needy, etc. that we are. So during the course of this period, especially from 2020 on, when the COVID mandates came about where we had to recluse ourselves, I started noticing that cycles of utopic and dystopic. Now the earth, like we see, goes up through utopic and down through dystopic periods. Well, there's smaller frames of that occurring in our own consciousness. And so that's what I want to kind of get into, because during COVID, I started noticing that there was a direct relationship in being in that salad spinner or being in the centrifuge to the Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance is kind of the heartbeat of the planet. And it has been pretty stable for a long time at 7.83 hertz. And that 7.83 hertz is really facilitating of our beta consciousness. The beta consciousness is the part of ourselves that enables us to set an intention and proceed externally and view and feel the navigational points externally and feel like we're progressing. Well, as the Schumann resonance spikes, all of a sudden, that ability to hold that frequency changes, to hold that intention, to hold that navigational point, to hold that safety and security and certainty that you're progressing. And so that's what I kind of want to get into. And in order to assist in this, I've prepared some slides to help you more see and understand, hopefully, where this reference of the Schumann resonance is. So give me a moment here, and I'm going to switch over to the slide presentation.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Ron.
All righty. So as I was saying, the Schumann resonance, the Earth's frequency called the Schumann resonance. And for those of you who don't know, there's a great group on Facebook. It's Schumann Resonance group. Highly recommend them. I've been utilizing their graphics because they give you a daily graphic of what's going on, and you can begin to track what you're sensing, what you're feeling to exactly what's going on in the earth. So, first of all, I was mentioning that our memory is based on magnetic memory and the frequency of the Earth's Schumann resonance. So because it's been held steady then it seems like our character, our 3D sense of self, and the reality all seems to be nice and stable. Then, when the Earth's frequencies start markedly spiking, you begin to feel a lot of different dissociations occurring because of that frequency. And so, as the character, we've been in a separation consciousness, and that's contracted us into 3D type of limited belief systems and how we see the vastness of the reality around us. You can go look into Schrodinger's cat and how the observer changes when the box is open and the cat is revealed. It's the metaphor for how our state, our consciousness state, impacts the infinite frequencies and forces the cat to face one direction instead of all directions, all probabilities and possibilities, and then it's either alive or dead. That's it in a nutshell. So I can't get into real deep, but in quantum navigation, we get into a lot of this stuff in the introduction to quantum navigation. So anyway, back to the Earth's frequency. As that spiking starts changing, there's two yous. There's the illusion of the character, the one that's been in separation reality, which has a history, an identity, and based on those, it has a personality. So that is based on 3D physics. But when the Earth starts shaking and gyrating, we start losing attachment. It's almost like the foundation is shaking too much that we lose the grip. But in losing the grip, yes, there's panic. Yes, it brings up all of our previous issues or incompletely processed issues for us to work through. But once they do, you become aware, you get little snippets of a vaster sense of you. That you is eternal. It always has been, always will be. That's the quantum you. It's kind of like an infinite ocean in every possible direction. That's what consciousness is. And so it pervades all realities, all densities, all fractalities, all species, etc., all landscapes, is that one quantum sense. And so in order for us to return to that quantum sense, it's got to shake the foundation of our attachment to 3D limitation and belief systems. So as an example, this is what the frequencies look like when it's nice and calm of the Schumann resonance. You have the greens and the blues. Now, this is very safe for the 3D personality, its history, identity, and the comfort zone, because when the quantum hits, it's, windows into infinite fractalities and probabilities. It makes you feel a little schizophrenic. Anyway, this is what, okay. So as I said, please visit the Schumann Resonance group on Facebook and sign up with them if this resonates with you. But here's a little identification of the colors. Blue, nice quiet ionosphere, stability, calm in your nervous systems. Green, earth, normal lighting, balance, coupling, human baseline energy. Yellow, things start to get a little more intense. Raising energy, the inputs, ear tingling, restlessness, mild fatigue, heightened sensations, anxiousness, fear, etc. Orange, sustained excitation in the very same things that I was just talking about. Head pressures, anxiety, sleeplessness, distortion and disorientation, disruption of reality. Red, high saturation, strong electromagnetic forces, headaches, dizziness, emotional volatility, exhaustion. White, maximum overload, How many of you felt maximum overload in the last few years? Stress system, stressed or forced. Anyway, you get the idea. So it starts graphing these things. This is it in a small encapsulation you see on the left-hand side there. And the Earth, though, it's conscious, so it wants to dole these things out in waves. So as it presses these things, it's also interested in seeing how you work with it, process it, negotiate it, navigate it, and find your center inside of the heightened state of release. As I said, this is like jumbling up your foundations. And we're like a torus field, one within another and another and another. And we have all these different layers that we've placed different forms of resistances, boundaries, dramas, traumas, etc. And so they've got to be shaken loose and cleared out in order for us to feel, infinite space and clarity. So there's a purpose behind it. Anyway, this is what's been happening. It's been intensifying to greater degrees. And as you can see, it's pretty intense. And so the last few years, you've been seeing marked more amounts of this. And there's been pauses in it when it goes back to normal, and that's when your time to allow it to filter through your systems. So I made a list here, and you can pause at this point in your recording, and you can see there's a lot of things. This makes sense to a lot of things that have been happening in ourselves. We've been experiencing. So, as I said, our wireframes of our contracted states, and we have a whole set of layers and levels of contracted states. Well, it brings up, as an example, the 7 or 9 roots of unconsciousness. So I've labeled them abandonment, betrayal. Anybody have those experiences, or those old stories coming back repeatedly to look at it from a new perspective? Guiltiness, which lines every one of the rest of these, which is powerlessness, worthlessness, neediness, helpless, hopeless, and nothingness. Our ego, the greatest illusion of ourselves, hates nothingness. But it's nothingness. When you can sit inside of being nothing, you open the door, you've cleared the, let's say, the layers, the foundations of all the detritus, all the things that aren't you, so you can experience the vastness of being everything. Only nothingness can hold everythingness. This is quantum consciousness. This is quantum principles. And so this is doing us a favor. It's shaking all these foundations. It's bringing up all of these issues in different forms. And one way or the other, it gives us opportunities to see it. And as the masters tell us, the Taoist masters tell us, your story is yours, but it is not you. Your mind and your thoughts, they're yours, but they're not you. Your emotions, they're yours, but they are not you. When you go beyond the mind, beyond the thoughts, beyond those stories, there you'll find the true self. So, as I said, we cling to all those wire frames of the separation reality of our dramas and traumas, our abandonment, betrayal, all our stories that validate to us, I am so contracted, I am so unworthy, I am so needy. And so it has to be shaken loose so that you can inhabit the pure innocence, the clarity, the vastness of your quantum self, which exists everywhere and is a part of all things. But how can you inhabit it when you're conditioned to contract and recoil around these separational frequencies of consciousness. And so this Schumann resonance has given us an opportunity to shape the frame and allow those items to come back up of contraction and incompletely processed belief systems about who and what we are. And so as we work through them, then we get to experience a little more vastness, a little more spaceness inside of ourselves, that we are present, pure, clear, naked, vulnerable, transparent. Don't have to hold on to anything because you already are all things. And so the Schumann resonance, it's not just spikes. It's been operating on so many different frequencies in order, it's like sending frequencies in so many different ways to get us to let go of even the tiny compartmentalizations of our most protected sense of self. So these are kind of like residual self-image and phantom limb syndrome, things we keep repeating and think we hold on to that we have to fix, when it's about detaching from it, seeing yourself clearly, seeing the self-realization you already are and always have been, pure and clear and a part of everything. But how can you inhabit that unless you're shown what you cling to? So in our most naked and vulnerable states, hence from 2020 to present, it's been intensifying these things to bring up the subtle residual self-image and compartmentalizations that we hold about ourselves of the phantom limb syndrome. So in addition to this, because the whole continuum is endless. There is no end in any direction that it's hard for the mind to grasp these things, but the continuum is just consciousness. And so the whole continuum, whether it's planets, whether it's suns, supernovas, etc., they're all part of the one consciousness. So we have the Earth raising its Schumann frequencies, getting to stimulate us to let go of our contracted sense of self and our under-processed or insufficiently processed things we didn't know that were in the closet, in the attic, in the basement, in the... Yeah, you get it. So also the planets have been doing the same. Those of you who are astrologers have known and have been tracking how these planets and their unusual alignments right now have been bringing up let's say reinforced experiences of moving down deeper into the basement, deeper into the darkness of ourself. And so the planetary alignments themselves have also been working to stimulate the removal of what we've been clinging to in the wireframe foundations of all the frequency states of our sense of self. And that's been also, now, some of the alignments right now have put us with the open door to the center of the galaxy. And the center of the galaxy exists right above what is called the star system of Ophiuchus. So it's in between Sagittarius and the tail of Scorpio. Right in the very middle stands Ophiuchus. And right above that, when our planetary systems are aligning towards Ophiuchus, that's when the deepest elements in our basements, in our closets, in our cupboards, in our attics, in our compartmentalizations are pressed forward. And so here's Ophiuchus, and Over on the left-hand side of your screen, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but that's Sagittarius and Scorpius. And you can see this is the center of the galaxy. So those have been aligning, but something more has been taking place. Astrologically, we're now in the fire horse, or better stated, fire hose, period. So if 2025 seemed like it was intense and things were coming at you from all directions for you to resolve, 2026, I bet, has seen a logarithmic uptick in the amounts that are being presented to you. Why? Because it's the opportunity to finish all your homework, all your under process, compartmentalized residual self-image, phantom limb syndrome of those shadow issues inside, and see that that's not you. They're yours, but you're innocent, you're pure, you're clear, you're vast. And so aiding in this process has been the aspect of the sun. Yes, the sun has been a part in this collusion of consciousness to, again, shake the foundations loose of the things that you thought you've dealt with. And in such of a way, I'm going to move us over to the other side here. And hopefully now you can see the solar flares coming off there. Well, the sun is conscious, and it's been emanating flares, intensifications towards the earth, which affect all the fields of the earth and the Schumann resonance and earthquakes. And it's been affecting us in the same way that the Schumann increased spikes of the Schumann resonance has. Now, for myself, I'm a nerd. And I started, back when I was young, I was having all kinds, when I was just 4 years old, I had ETs coming and meeting me. I go into that in Introduction to Quantum Navigation. And those ETs really left a mark, an impression. Because when those ETs come, it's like they bring an entirely different reality in there. And it seems like the 3D reality has to take a pause. It's subservient to the reality that's coming in and vesting itself upon you in your bedroom, in your sense of security. And there's nothing you can do. It's like you have to tolerate it until it's done. And also when I was young, I had these repeating experiences of falling through the vastness of the void. But I could see in all directions. So dark as it was, seeing in all directions. Now there's this sense of having a body, but there was no body there. It was just consciousness. Now that I look back, and as I was falling, then it came up slowly, but this big white sphere passed in front of me. And I kept falling past it. And so I could ascertain that the amount of time it took me to drop past it, and I was falling fast, it took quite a while. So that was a big sphere. And then one would happen on the other side. And then later one behind me. But yet I could see. I didn't have to turn. I could see in all directions. And then this started speeding up. And then I went into one of those spheres, and it opened up into the cosmos before me. So like there was all kinds of galaxies, and I headed towards the galaxy that I'm in now. And then I woke up in my bed. And this was a repeating dream that took place. So as a child, I had this, again, when these repeated dreams started happening, it seemed like this was more than real, and you had to tolerate it. So it took priority over 3D reality. So I began my journey as a young child why was this happening? There's like three major questions. Why was this happening? Where is this coming from? And how do I operate the system? And that began my quantum navigation journey, because I was after trying to find out those answers. Anyway, get back to that maybe later. But as I said, I was a nerd, and I was a nerd for quite a long time, trying to figure out the nature of reality and these quantum aspects. So I started meditating at a very young age, and I became enthralled in watching or observing fire walking. And I wanted to know, well, how can they walk barefoot on fire? Now, this all makes sense in just a little bit, so bear with me here. So I rationalized that they must go into meditation, and in their ceremonies, they must be imbibing themselves inside of so much spirit that it's the frequency that enables them to walk on the fire itself. And so here's another view of walking on hot coals barefooted. So adventurous and curious as I was, I thought, well, let's put this to a test. Now, I didn't want to go full into fire walking, but I went into, I would frequently go camping. And so I resolved to do a meditation and then place my hands in the fire. Once I got into that high frequency, I could put my hands into the fire, and then I could safely pull it out when I felt like, danger was coming. And I began to notice that the more I stayed with the frequency, the longer I could keep my hand inside of the fire. So I began realizing, fire is a frequency, so consciousness is a frequency. So as long as I stayed in that frequency, all things would be fine. Now, I took it a little bit further. I don't have the graphics here to show you, but I would go, I loved being part of the Diné, the Navajo medicine sweat lodges. And I learned that if you go into your heart, the fire helps drive you deeper into the heart, and you could go through successive, that's one thing those that participate in sweat lodges know. Each successive round with the fire, it gets more intense. And so you can stay in, and I got to the point where I could stay through the whole thing. You didn't step out for 5 minutes or so and cool down. I found it was much more comfortable to stay in the heart and go deeper into the frequency, and then, allow yourself to experience the intensification and not have a problem with it. So I was challenged by a friend of mine who's a Marine, an elite Marine, and in Zion, I took him through Zion through the Narrows, and the Narrows, the National Parks website, constantly monitors the flow rate and the temperature of the Virgin River. And so we were there when the temperature was 37 degrees, and he was doing Wim Hof exercises. So he would jump in and he would tease me, and I said, no, you're the Marine, you go ahead, you enjoy yourself, knock yourself out. But he kept teasing me, so I thought, okay, I'll try it out. So I took off my top, got into my shorts, went into the water, 37 degrees, and I thought, okay, this has got to be just like a sweat lodge, except when the cold starts coming through your extremities, the extremities would be first, just push the warm fire through your fingertips and maintain that consciousness, maintain that energetic connection from the heart. Just keep pushing the cold out. So I did, and I knew I would lose time. So time would seem infinitely slow. So what seemed like I wanted to do 4 minutes to prove myself to him. So I got into the water and I thought, okay, I'll just keep in this state. And when I thought it was 4 minutes, and I knew time is exceptionally slow, when I thought it was 4 minutes, I thought, okay, now I can get out. So I get out and he goes, "You suck." And I go, "Why? What happened?" He videoed the whole thing. I go, "Why? What happened?" He said, "That was 20 minutes. So I knew that it's consciousness. So then I also tried when I was younger, I would sit in meditation, and I had heard, I was very impressionable at that time and curious and full of experimentation. So I thought, yeah, after hearing, you can stare at the sun, it's dangerous, but if you stare at the sun and you're in that state, you'll see the vision purple, and that vision purple will assist you in assuaging any of the damage from the center of the sun. Now, I'm going to say right now, I don't recommend this, okay? I'm a nerd. And I use myself as the test element. So I was okay with what I did. I don't recommend anybody else, but to tell the story, I got to the point, I worked up to it, of course, but I got to the point where I could stare at the sun for a half an hour. And that vision purple kept my eyes from having any kind of problems. I can see just fine today. Almost have 20/20, but now I'm getting older, so I have to wear glasses. Anyway, enough said. It's the consciousness. Your frequency matters. Okay. So getting back to the sun has been flaring, and I've been monitoring our groups, our quantum navigation groups, since 2022. Now, I started the quantum navigation classes way back in 2016, but I started doing it more frequently, about 3 times a month, probably around 2020. And so 3 times a month, we have our quantum navigation classes. Anyway, we've been monitoring both the Schumann resonance, the astrologics, and the solar flaring because of that principle of shaking the wireframe attachments we have to our foundation of separation consciousness. It's layered. And so this layering, what these are doing is assisting us, bringing back all these things we don't realize that we've been holding on to. And it takes the assistance of the planet, the planets, the astrologics, and the solar flaring. And I started noticing, well, about the time that you're getting tired of constantly processing, I got more stuff. I had repeating patterns. There comes a point, is this ever going to end? Yeah, we feel it too. Yeah. And I started noticing there is something that's changing. Now, when the solar flaring started having end in early January of 2026 of this year, I started noticing that all that solar flaring is having a great effect. Now, here's the story of, here's a graphic of some of the sunspots. So the solar flares are making it possible for us to test the consciousness of the sun is testing your ability to stay centered in and amongst all the chaos that's happening around the planet, but also the uptick of all of the shaking, like shaking a rug. All out comes all the dirt, the dust, the detritus, all the things that you don't want on the rug, that's not a part of the rug. So same thing that these astrologics, the Schumann resonance, and the solar flaring is doing is shaking the rug to make sure the most infinitesimally small, residual, compartmentalized, protected sense of ourselves in our dramas, traumas, pains, and so on, our conditioned thinking as the sun flares, it also turns and opens the corona field. The corona, the chromosphere, and the photosphere to give you an exposure of something very different at the core. So it's testing. Are you able to assimilate the consciousness, the directness of the gamma frequency? So this exposure of the sunspot is making space and testing for assimilation, testing for conscious recognition of your ability to remain centered inside the self-realization that you are the continuum of consciousness. Remember what I said about the continuum? You're everywhere and a part of everything, but we've been used to wearing different layers and different variations of masks and costumes. That's like the corona field, the dynamically changing corona field. Our fields, our masks and our costumes we wear, our reputations we wear. We bring that up in our personality according to what we feel, our body feels is safe in the environment around us. So we bring up a layer of mask, costume, and field that feels safe in that type of an environment. Well, the sun is giving us these open exposures of the corona field past the photosphere, past the chromosphere, through the convection zone, all the way down to the core to see if you're ready. Can you take direct resonance, direct emanation of your apex frequency? Remember who you are? So there's this aspect of our consciousness. Now, here I'm identifying the core, the radiation zone, the convection zone, the photosphere, chromosphere, and the corona of the sun, just so it's nice and clear. But the sun has this aspect of looping back upon itself the variations and dynamics of energy, frequency, magnetics, etc., onto the self. Now that's important. That's the sun holding a mask and a costume according to its conscious. So according to what can the earth hold right now? Can it hold my flaring? And is there enough in the collective consciousness to be able to hold a direct exposure of a sunspot directly towards the planet? And if so, can it experience the opening of the corona field to expose all the way down to the core? Yes, it's happening. And it's effective. And there's a purpose behind it. All that clearing and cleansing we've been doing on all the wireframes of our being has been, okay, I'm going to switch us a second. I'm going to move us over here. Same thing, the symptomology that we've been, I've stated already that the Schumann resonance and also the astrologics are making sure that the basement, the attic, the closet, and the cupboards are all opening all the subtle compartmentalizations to re-experience and let it go. And so this is a graphic exposing these large, massive corona holes and what it's doing to our presence on the earth. So it's exciting everything, and it's tipping those cards, as you mentioned earlier, Glenn. All the infrastructure that Lyssa and Sasha, so Lyssa, was talking about Are you ready to hold something vaster? So I've been tracking, and our group has been tracking, this constant changing corona massive exposures. And these are some of the most recent one. This is taken on the 18th of February. And these are after. So it's doing something. Now, I've recently come across that the quantum scientists, I'm just a mad scientist, the quantum scientists have come up with a new name for the looping and curving of that energetic frequency magnetics upon particles in separation reality. It's called quantum metricing. So that looping makes so much sense. Why? Because in unconsciousness, you see, we come from the continuum. And from the continuum, we have infinite spectrum of potentiality. So we're talking about gamma and beyond, because it's quantum, so it's all frequency. So gamma we know is dangerous, right? And gamma particles come into the sun, and they're not allowed to leave the core of the sun for 1,000,000 years. And during that 1,000,000 years, they're bouncing off of each other, sharing their frequencies. And each time they share, each time they bounce off of each time they ricochet, they diminish a little bit in frequency until they get to the photonic level. Once they're at the photonic level, then they're allowed to pass the convection zone, the chromosphere, the radiation zone, the convection zone, the chromosphere, the photosphere, the corona, and they're free to travel about the cabin without your seatbelt. They're free to travel about the universe and go out. Because now they're not dangerous, but we know gamma changes DNA. All things in the reality have DNA in order to hold the structure. So they come from the continuum of consciousness in maximum apex frequency, and they voluntarily move down into lesser consciousness states in order to occupy object, subject, a body, so that it can view where it came from, the continuum. It doesn't have any boundary, and it's infinite spectrum. So what the hell is it? Well, let me get outside and inside of a body. But inside of a body, you see, it has to have a DNA. It has to hold a structure. And so it weaves its structure. But gamma changes that. So you can see consciousness changes the structured reality. Consciousness lifts you out of all the layers, separational stages of separational consciousness back into the continuum. So this looping mechanism of coming back onto a particle, all particles in separation reality are part of the unconsciousness. In unconsciousness, they've got to occupy a body, so they are the center of their own universe. And that's a mirror reflection, a fractal of who and what we really are. But inside the separation reality, all those looping magnetics, frequencies, particles start to build on each other. We see from Dr. Emoto's work, where intention lays out the superstructure. Consciousness is inextricable from sacred geometry. They're dynamic, and it's one and the same. Consciousness is sacred geometry, dynamically moving. But in frequency and intention, it starts to occupy the superstructure of those layers and levels of separational reality with particles. And so we also see with cymatics how those particles move into different orientations. Okay, I'm hitting you with a lot of stuff right away, but I'm trying to show that that looping of the unconsciousness loops on the center of self in a separational reality until you begin to realize, oh, I'm gamma. I'm much more than gamma. I'm apex. And apex, this is why the sun is doing this test and recede back. Test, opens up the mask and the costume, and then it retreats back. Can you hold this frequency? This is you. Remember? Remember? And at the very core, you got X-rays, you got gamma rays, you got even more potentialities that are opening up for our remember. It's conscious, so it's trying to see if you're remembering who and what you are and holding the field open. So let's get some. Here's what I'm talking about in those looping of the energetic fields. So quantum metrics, we see it in all kinds of particles. You see, especially see it in a black hole. This is a rendering of a type of a black hole. Everything comes back onto itself. But the black hole is the gateway into separation reality, into structured existence. And on the other side of that is the continuum of consciousness. It's not, it can be all these different layers and levels of fractals of the mind, creating density, dimension, and fractalizations thereof. And that's an infinitum, like a mirror within a mirror within a mirror, and it continues until you realize, no, you don't have a structure, you don't have a body, you're the field itself. And so on the other side of a quantum singularity, on the other side of a black hole, yes, there's a white hole, but that leads back into restructurization, but it also leads to the potential of moving into the continuum of consciousness, into nothingness, and only nothingness can hold everything. And in that everythingness, there's maximum potentiality. So gamma, you're back to gamma. And the reason for that, before we get into that, you see that all particles have the same kind of structuring around them, from quarks, protons, neutrons, electrons, etc., all the way into our own bodies. So we're more accurately look like this. Now, that's important because even the center of the sun looks like this, even the center of galaxy. And so this is, like I was talking about, the intention of cymatics and also Dr. Emoto's work. This is the sacred geometry where particles start to lodge on the sacred geometry fields themselves. So these are the atoms, neutrons, protons, etc., populating. This is a graphic of an actual atom. And this is the first real image of electron's orbit. And so we're more like this. And this is that quantum metric. It loops back on itself until it's ready to open the very core. When it opens the very core, now this is what I've been saying about how all this work, all this clearing and cleansing in all these different ways and variations and versions. This is where I started noticing in January that as the corona field was opening up, all of a sudden the head, the mind sphere in Taoist, yes, you have the chakras, but you take the three main ones, and that's the head sphere. It makes one big overlapping one. Then you have the heart sphere, which is mainly three different chakras. And then you have the lower sphere, the Dantian, the Danjan. So those three spheres become important. So when the corona field opened up, then all of a sudden I was noticing that the mind was absolutely clear. And in its clarity, you could feel the sphericality, and that sphericality in its purity magnified everything around. So it was like, oh my God, it's magnifying the sense, connecting you to the oceanic sense of self, the quantum self, not the character in all the layers and levels of contraction, because all the looping fields are gone. So something was happening inside of this that was different. And that's direct radiance emanating in straight lines in all direction. Now, as this continued, you started noticing that as the field started clearing up inside of the heart, it started opening the heart space up to resemble like the mind sphere, nice and clear, except this sphere was much larger. And so I'm going to use inside of your little thumbnail of me, I'm going to use this as a metaphor of the mind sphere clearing. And when the heart sphere cleared, like I said, you can feel your connection to the oceanic presence of the continuum of consciousness, meaning the endlessness, the boundless. There was no looping, no need for a mask. So it moved you out of doingness, that the character, and into beingness, which you have to surrender all things and return back to the self. So you have to surrender every mask and layer of mask, every costume and layer of costume, your history, identity, personality, reputation. You let all that go because you're completely pure, innocent, and always have been. So this started moving down into the center of the sphere that you see before you. So let's use that as a representation of the heart sphere. So the mind sphere moved into the heart sphere and it magnifies whatever it's experiencing. And so you've gotten out of the mind. And so you move into being able to take all the frequencies from the sun and the sun's core. I'm moving through these fast. And here's a derivation of, let's say, that core energy from the very center of the sun. It has the effect of taking all the layers and levels of our fabric, which is our costuming and our masking, what we've used to contract ourselves to be a 3D personality. Having the open radiance is a different expansive feeling of taking your former boundaries and layers. Now you're going to feel very naked, very vulnerable, and all inclusive. So as you go through the process of surrendering into that oceanic purity, innocence, clarity, peace, it becomes so fulfilling within itself. You don't manage anything. It just emanates brighter and brighter, kind of like the biblical saying, when thine eye becomes single, thy body fills with light. And so this flexing of the corona sphere, the corona hole on the surface of the sun towards us, is helping us remember that as we surrender to our original state of being, we open all the folds and we inclusively embrace the whole of the continuum, and we surrender all the layers and levels of separation, identification, our history, identity, personality of the former self to return to our original self. And it takes the diamond clear apex frequencies of you surrendering to your own emanation, and you become all that is. So I hit you with a lot of stuff.
That's quite a lesson.
You can always review, pause and review. I'm going to stop here and return us back to
Ron, that was a major lesson. So thank you for all of that information. I'm going to see if I can distill it just a little bit, because you're at like the high level, and I love that nerdy stuff because that just fuels me. but I'm going to see if I can distill it, and please correct me
Hmm.
if I don't speak accurately, because I want to make sure that I can bring it down just a little bit of a level, so someone who's watching this for the first time can understand that there's a conversation of consciousness that's taking place between Mother Gaia and Father Sun. And
Yes.
as that's happening, as that conversation is happening and emanating through these solar flares, that these solar flares are all of this information that is embedded into that. And as these embedded informations hit us and our planet, that shaking that you're speaking of is our realization of looking in the mirror and saying, is this really me? Is this a part of me? And it gives us an opportunity to re examine or examine for the first time, or maybe multiple times, of things that are no longer in resonance with who we truly are. And as we start to investigate that through awareness, it gives us an opportunity to choose differently. And our choice point can be that maybe this doesn't resonate with us any longer. And we can allow that to dissipate or not have its energetic fuel where it defines on who I am anymore. It gives us that opportunity for change. And as we absorb these changes, it builds our awareness to the authentic person that we really are, the person that really is the expressive, vulnerable human being, because we're no longer wearing all of our attention in our head of, I'm this, I wear this label, I wear this label, but we now come from that heart centered space where all of that true authenticity really resides. So, did I kind of distill some of the higher technical terms of quarks and all of our cymatics of vibration in just a more simplistic way of understanding that this really is the technical version of ascension?
That's your gift, Glenn. You deftly articulated all of that and synopsized it down into a nutshell. Part of what I feel is to lay out enough of a base, a grounded base, that where you come into it from your level of understanding, or I'm speaking of whatever individual comes into it from whatever level of understanding, they can find a place and begin to absorb more of the whole. And you did it so well. So I didn't have to lay all that. I'll just come to Glenn.
You're the expert. I'm tuning in because I've done work and I continue to do work and every day. And, when you talk about the Schumann resonance, the last few days, which is really the first couple of days here of our month of April, it's shaking really hard, right? It's like, come on, do you need this? Do you really want to be this? Do you really want to have this? It's coming at such an intensity
Yeah.
that there's really no choice not to examine. You can't say, I'll deal with that later. Oh, that may be a tomorrow thing. It's like, no, you're in the moment of now. Make the decision. Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Do you want to be in that level of ascension, in that fourth dimensional reality where creation is your true language? It's the language of love, right? We're creators. Do you truly want to be in that language and that flow of that energetic system of love and flow? Or do you want to be in the tenacity and the hardship of learning lessons that are very dense? And you can go either way.
Yeah,
That's
your
your
choice.
free will.
You said something that's so important. I want to circle back onto that. There was a movie that's called Pi, just simply Pi, not Life of Pi, just Pi. And in it, it's a black and white film. And in it, there's this guy that's so intelligent, and everyone's seeking him out to resolve the issues and answers to all their problems. And the stock market comes to him, and a spiritual organization wants to come to rebuild the temple. And so that, he's hit with all these things, and he's trying to figure out, Fibonacci, pi, he's looking at, how it relates to the, and he's just going, it's causing him so much stress that he's waking, he can't sleep. And it gets to the point where he's like having these, not dreams, but visions of getting a drill and just ending it all and drilling through his head because he wants it to stop and he can't. And then he finally realized, and in the next scene, you see him, he's laying back in a park bench, looking at these trees that are just moving slowly in the wind. And he's got this peaceful smile on his face. And, he wasn't lobotomized or anything. He just found the love within. Mm-hmm. And I'm circling back to that because as I started this journey, when I, said as a little kid, I wanted to find out what's this reality all about? Because this isn't the real reality, that there's something that keeps coming in and it takes all the time and attention. So you should put your attention on that. Anyway, I found my answers mostly when I was in that state of either meditation or out in the forest, nothing going on, and it bubbled up inside from the love I had of everything around. And look who it brought me.
True blessings.
I followed the love, I followed the rainbow, and the answers are already within us. It's in each and every one of us. And as we begin navigating our way back to that clarity of giving ourselves the space and the time for the love to answer our questions instead of figuring it out through the head and coming out with an upset stomach and a headache.
Right.
Anyway, love is the most important thing. That's what I found. Love is beingness, and beingness gets you through the door. The separation reality is all about the doer and the achiever. But when you settle back and realize, oh, I'm the pathway, I'm the only one that's got the bridle on myself, so I can let that leash go and I can enter into being the beer. And what does it take to be the beer? And that's what I'm talking about when the heart opens up and it starts to clear from all of that shaking. You find, and that's the trepidation. Yes, it's challenging because the ego is afraid of nothingness. Remember I said that at the beginning? The thing that hurts the worst, that hates the most, is nothingness. I'm afraid I'm going to be nothing. No, when you're nothing, you become everything automatically.
So very well said.
Can you imagine what it's like living in our house now? With these two nerds always talking about this crazy stuff.
So much knowledge and, so much love from both of you. Why don't we tell our listeners how they can find you so you can share your knowledge again with them? I know that we have this very special event coming up called the Channel Panel in May. And, that's a new ongoing thing that my good friend and our collective good friend, Rob Gauthier, has initiated again. And it is now gaining some great momentum and people are becoming more aware of this. So would you like to talk about all of the great things that are coming up in your future for both of you, and where we can find you on the internet? And we'll make sure that we also embed all of your contact information as well. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on for the next couple of months with both of you.
Okay, I'll start with the channel panel since you brought it up. May 8th through 10th, 2026 in Escondido, California. It's 12 channels. Myself, Daryl Anka, Wendy Kennedy, Rob Gauthier, Daniel Scranton. I know I'm going to forget somebody. Paul Selig, Lee Carroll, Cryon, and others. And we're going to have a channel party for 3 days. So you can find that information on my website, www.lyssa, Lyssa, Royal, ROYAL.net. And you'll see other stuff there, the schedule. I do, as I said, I do a lot of work with the Japanese. So my whole month of June is a bilingual time where I do classes that have already started. And probably in the summer, I'm going to be doing an online contact workshop. So you can take a look at that on my website when I list it. And finally, capping the year is I'm in Japan every year for the month of November. And we are actually doing a live and in-person contact retreat, a small one. It's only one night, so I know if you're not in Asia, it's hard to go. But we'll be doing that on a secluded beach. It's really awesome. And all of that you can see on my website. So you can find me at the website, www.lyssaroyal.net, Instagram, Lyssa, Lyssa _channelings_official, and the Lyssa Royal Holt group page on Facebook. Okay, that's enough. Thank you so much.
Ron, how can we find you?
Okay, well, first of all, I like to prepare individuals. I get a lot of people asking about how can I join the quantum navigation classes, which are held principally about 3 times a month. And there's 2 prerequisites in order, so you don't get lost inside of the class and you're well prepared. I offer a 2-day meditation for life workshop. It's not your usual meditation workshop. It goes pretty comprehensive and deep. And then once you finish with that, the second prerequisite is the 2-day introduction to quantum navigation. And just write me at Ronald Holt at hotmail.com, or you can go to the website www.quantumnavigation.net. Now, in there, if you go /library, there's 24 videos free where, a lot of those classes in 2016 that I told you that I did, I recorded a lot of them and put them up there. Some of them have meditations inclusive within it. Some of them don't, but there's a lot of good preparatory material inside of there. Now, for me, one of the things that are coming up is supporting my wife, Lyssa, as we go to San Diego for the channel panel. But before that, now, a lot of the work that we do that I talked about, working with the shadow issues. Now, Lyssa and I both went through an intensive Taoist class period from 1999 to, 2010, I think it was. And we became, was that facilitators? Not facilitators. Instructors. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. I'm getting old. I've used my words for the day. I'm male. So I only have 2,000. Anyway, inside of that, we went through a lot of physical practice. Physical practices are important because it extends the deepening of clearing out your fascia, your entire systems of these things. So anyway, I offer classes on Taoist Taoist horse dance and Qi training. Now that's really where the rubber hits the road. And I have Southwest Journeys. Now, Southwest Journeys is designed kind of like the principle of the Taoist movements. You do intensive work, then that clears a lot of your inner foundations to be ready and receptive for when we go into power spots. And so I'm having one April 22nd. It begins till May 1st, Southwest Journey. I usually do private ones on this, and we go to many different power spots: Sedona, Antelope Canyon, Zion Canyon, Monument Valley, Canyon de Chelly, Mesa Verde, all these different power spots, all these different hikes where you're clearing and taking in power spots, frequencies, and energy to, let's say, re-anchor into higher frequencies. Once you've cleared the dust, it's nice to put some new, fresh, and higher frequencies that you can sit on inside yourself and enjoy. So anyway, that's what I have coming up. And I think I'm going to be doing in July. I haven't finished the website notification for it. I was waiting to do yours first before I can start working on the advanced quantum navigation class.
I'm trying to get him on Instagram. He is not on Instagram yet, but I'm pushing. So that might come in the future.
Awesome.
Anyway.
And you can find Ron on Facebook.
On Facebook also, yes.
Ronald Holt is on Facebook. And we can also find you on your website, which is
www.quantumnavigation.net.
The other website, that's his website. I gave you mine. We have our organization's website, which is www.solischool, SOLI, school.org. And that will cover both of us, actually.
Awesome. And we will have all of that information embedded into the write-up. So we'll make sure that if you don't hear it and you can't write it down fast enough, it'll also be at the end of this video, and you'll also find it embedded into the information. So please take a look at that. Lyssa, Ron, it has been such a blessing to spend some time with you, and for such gratitude for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your life experience, and most importantly, for sharing that loving, touching story about how you two met. And thank you for sharing that with me. I am honored, and it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us and bearing with our long stories.
And presentations. Thank you, Glenn, for making space and time and honoring us to be on your show. Thank you. It's always a great event.
And again, thank you to all of our listeners, our participants, whether you're watching this now, 5 years down the road, or 5 minutes down the road. Thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. And always come back for more information. Come back to the Ascension Stargate podcast. There are so many wonderful people that are willing to share their knowledge and their experience. I hope you join us again. Thanks, everybody.